hiring isn't a checkbox task. You know that. It should be a strategic move. It shapes the future of your firm. It's not just about getting the HR department or the partners to do it. It should be everyone's job to be on the lookout for potential candidates and making sure there's a fit. The next time a vacancy arises, don't just replace, reimagine. In today's changing landscape, being technically good at your job isn't enough. If you want to be a leader and influencer, both in your firm and across your industry, your community, you've got to have the right insights, the right strategies, the right personal brand. Would it surprise you to know that accounting firms are not particularly strategic with their hiring, with their recruitment strategies? They look at what people have left, where there might be some gaps, but they don't really join the dots. Welcome back to the Accounting Talent Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Brown, and today we're diving into part 2 of a mini-series on strategic hiring. If you missed part 1, we talked about when to hire, recognizing those critical moments where adding new talent isn't just a choice, but a necessity, and how to get ahead of that, whether it's dealing with unexpected vacancies, overworked teams, expansion opportunities. Knowing when to hire is a game changer. But now we're tackling an even bigger question: who you should hire. And most people think that this is simple. You just find someone with the right qualifications, you plug them into the role, everything's good. Well, actually, a bit of a shortcut to failure, because hiring isn't just about filling the gaps. It's about strategically building your team, thinking ahead, ensuring you're not just hiring for today's needs, but for tomorrow's opportunities. And that's what we're going to dive into today. And if you want to lead, influence, shape the future of your firm, then stick around. We're going to explore how to rethink roles in your accounting firm, build teams for growth, hire specialized talent that can set your firm apart. And hopefully, like on all of these podcasts, you walk away with some actionable insights that can take your hiring decisions and that of the people that do the hiring in your firm from reactive to a little bit more proactive, and ultimately help your firm thrive. That is the whole essence of the Accounting Talent Podcast. So once you've determined it's time to hire, the next question is who to bring on board. And this is especially important in situations like filling a vacancy, expanding a team, adding expertise to a specific service line. Let's start with a bold idea. Don't hire carbon copies. This happens such a lot in accounting firms. We lost an audit manager, we need an audit manager. We lost a tax partner, we need a tax partner. Or we're going to lose, or someone's retiring, so let's bring in someone to fill that specific role. Problem is, when someone leaves, many firms instinctively look for someone exactly like that person that just walked out the door. But if you're thinking strategically, that might be the wrong move. So part 1 here, as we think about who to hire. Part 1 is rethinking roles after a vacancy. This is your opportunity to reset, recalibrate. So as we dive into vacancies, when someone leaves, don't assume that you need to hire a direct and like-for-like replacement. This could be a chance to rethink the rule. It could be a chance to rethink the team, the strategy. Can tasks be redistributed to give existing staff more responsibility? I'm mindful of pushing workload on people. We know how busy people are right now. But if you can give them more responsibility, and then you can delegate or automate some of the lower-level aspects of the role that just went, that might be a way to go. For example, imagine this scenario. Your top senior tax manager leaves unexpectedly. The gut reaction is to scramble to fill the void, post the job ad, find someone with the same skills, and plug them in. I did an episode recently with my co-host Jeff Phillips on the critical 30-day period when somebody leaves unexpectedly. So check that one out. Now, you want to get somebody that's right, but what if instead of reacting, you took a step back to rethink the role entirely? Many firms don't do this. They don't have that breathing space, that thinking space. But maybe it's time to bring in someone with niche expertise like tax advisory or forensic accounting to deepen your service offerings. It's not the tax manager that left, but if you can join the dots together and think a wider picture, it may be a good opportunity to recalibrate. So as an action point here, conduct a needs analysis. We hear things like this thrown around in corporate environments all the time, but maybe that tax manager was handling both tax prep and client relationships. What if those two responsibilities are better off in separate roles? One focused on the technical side of things, keeping up with the regulatory stuff, what's mandated by law. The other side on the client management stuff. Splitting those roles, you might not only boost efficiency, but you might provide clearer career paths for your team. I did hear an example of a mid-sized firm in New York. They lost their head of operations. We're getting more heads of operations, CXO, COOs, CPOs, CTOs, more of a C-suite approach as the partnership model comes under scrutiny. But in this situation, instead of hiring a direct replacement, they created two roles, one for operations, another for process improvements. And the result was this sort of 15% improvement in operation efficiency within 12 months. Now, that's a long-term play, but they weren't interested in just filling the gap and replacing like for like. So the next time a vacancy arises, don't just replace, reimagine. Point two here is building teams for expansion. So we talked first off about that, rethinking a role after a vacancy. And in building teams for expansion, as firms grow, so do demands on your staff. Growth is brilliant. It's exciting, but it brings some challenges. And when your firm's expanding, especially into new service lines, new markets, simply adding more of the same talent doesn't necessarily help you. So you need people who bring something new to the table. So when you're expanding that team or launching that new service line, be really intentional about who you hire. Are you looking for someone to scale what you're doing? Maybe like a junior accountant, a project manager. Are you thinking about thought leadership? Are you thinking about leadership generally? Do you need someone who can drive strategy forward, like a partner or a senior consultant? Does it need to be someone that's accounting qualified? So lots to consider here on building teams for expansion. One approach is to look for people who have successfully navigated growth in other firms in particular areas. These are professionals who know how to manage the growth pains of expansion, from expanding headcount, doing some recruitment themselves, or breaking into new service lines. Take the forensic accounting part of a London-based firm that I came across. They wanted to rehire professionals with legal backgrounds to complement their accounting team. And this interdisciplinary approach led to a 20% increase in case wins for their clients. I lost a big business development training contract with a top 30 UK accounting firm some years ago. This was pre-pandemic, because instead of spending the money to hire me, they spent some money to hire a lawyer from a local legal firm to open up a new service line for them. So I don't hold that against them. I'll get over it in time. So a pro tip here: when expanding your team, look beyond the standard skill set. What unique expertise could elevate your department? Are there any complementary skills, data analytics, consulting experience, advisory experience, crypto, cyber, all kinds of stuff that can help you stand out in a market or even penetrate a market? And remember, thinking strategically, it doesn't just boost your firm, it positions you in the firm. And this podcast goes out to heads of talent, heads of people, HR, heads of talent acquisition, as well as the bosses, the managers, the partners that hire people. Position yourself as a strategic leader. It's great for your personal brand. You're adding value to the firm. And the more actively you engage with the growth process and the recruitment process, the more influence and authority you will have. Point three here: acquiring specialized talent has got to be at the top of your agenda. So the third major area to focus on here is specialized expertise. And this one's huge. It's more and more coming to the fore in recruitment strategy, particularly in accounting. You'll often encounter projects that require very niche knowledge: international tax, data analytics, cybersecurity, crypto, digital asset management, compliance with new regulations like ESG, or maybe even some DEI stuff. And in these cases, it's not about bringing in a generalist. There are plenty of generalists out there. This is about bringing in someone that's already an expert in the field you're looking for. So a generalist won't cut it. You are looking for a specialist. Could be a permanent, but it might make sense to hire on a contract basis, especially if the work you're looking at is time-bound or has some project-specific needs. I saw a stat from the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts a 6% growth in demand for accountants with expertise in international tax law over the next decade. I chaired a conference in New York recently for a big audit software company that supplies some of the biggest firms in the world with their audit software. And the growth of audit came up. The stat actually was that the number of firms offering audit is growing down, but we saw research from the Financial Reporting Council that said that the fee income from audit had grown up over 19% over the last year. The reason I bring this up is we are in such a connected world. This point came out that the whole global aspect of business, firms are aligned to alliances, networks, associations, communities. International tax law is going to be massive. In some cases, the only way to meet client needs in that area is to hire someone with a razor sharp focus in a particular niche. Take Ernst & Young, well-known firm. They heavily invested in blockchain, and they were actively recruiting blockchain specialists to meet the growing demand for digital asset audits. And this decision didn't just help them meet client needs, it has given them a competitive edge. It sets them apart from their rivals. They were thinking very far ahead and mopping up a lot of the blockchain specialists. So the message here is, if your firm's landing more complex clients, entering new markets, breaking out internationally, this is the time to push for specialized. This is the time to push for specialized hires. And it might be tempting to settle for a generalist to save time and money, but long term, that investment in specialized talent should pay off. So don't wait for your competitors to bag this specialized talent before you do. You've got to seize the day. Point 4 here is balancing technical skills with cultural fit. Now, this seems obvious, but I've got to mention it. We're talking about the who of hiring. We've talked about skills, but there's something often overlooked in the hiring process, which is cultural fit. And this is really difficult to assess. There's so many candidates with stellar resumes, curriculum vitae, as we call them in the UK, but if they don't align with your firm's values, work culture, you might end up doing more harm than good. So you've got to remember that technical skills are only part of the equation. Cultural fit is just as critical, especially where in accounting we need teamwork, communication, long-term client relationships. They're central to success. So don't just focus on what the candidate knows. Focus on how they're going to mesh with your existing team. Are they going to play a good game if they are hybrid or remote? Are they going to sit with your firm's values? Will they collaborate well? Do they have the potential to grow into leadership roles? These kind of questions help you ensure that you're not just hiring for today's needs, but for the future of your firm, and getting people that will plug in and quickly adopt your firm's DNA. You probably heard of Zappos, the e-commerce giant. When they hire, they actually pay new hires $2,000 to quit after the first week if they feel they're not a fit. You might be able to assess if someone's a fit culturally before the hire, or even after the hiring process after a week. But giving the incentive to the new hire themselves to say, am I a fit for this firm? I think that's genius. It's an extreme example. I don't know if accounting firm would do that, but it's based on the simple idea that misfits drain energy, they drain morale, they drain productivity. So I'm not saying start paying people to leave, but the principle here in accounting is clear. Where teamwork, client relationships are concerned, cultural fit is just as important as technical prowess. So hopefully we're having that home. When hiring, it's values, isn't it? It's vision, it's values. Get your team involved as well. They'll have valuable insights on whether a new hire is going to get involved with the rest of the group. When cultural fit is right, the onboarding, the productivity, the retention should improve dramatically. So now that we've explored the when to hire in part 1, we've explored the who to hire in part 2, there's one question left. How do you actually attract and land these top candidates? So in next week's episode, the final part of this 3-part mini-series, I'm going to tackle the tactical side of recruitment, how to craft compelling job descriptions, the best ways to tap into your professional network, how to ensure you're bringing in talent that will grow with your firm for years to come. I'm working with a wonderful firm in North Carolina called BRC, Bernard Robinson and Company. Their culture, their people, I interview them a lot to talk about why that firm is a great place to work. And it's a common phrase to use, this is my forever firm. You want to bring in talent that's going to grow with your firm and stick around, because churn is costly. So in the next episode, I'll share some examples of how firms have mastered the hiring process, key mistakes you should avoid. And as we draw to a close, hiring isn't a checkbox task. You know that. It should be a strategic move. It shapes the future of your firm. It's not just about getting the HR department or the partners to do it. It should be everyone's job to be on the lookout for potential candidates and making sure there's a fit. So I encourage you all, as we draw to a close, just step up and take some ownership. You're not just filling positions, you're building the long-term health of the firm. You're building a stronger, more resilient team. So next time you hear about a vacancy or notice that your team's stretched a little bit thin, don't just sigh and move on or pick up the slack. Take some action. Share your insights. Be the leader you are aspiring to be or you're expected to be, and go on better and start anticipating hiring needs. Be more aware of the bottlenecks in processes or deliverables, client fulfillment, opportunities to expand your team and your offering. And don't miss part 3, where we'll get into the nitty gritty of attracting the right talent to elevate your firm's future. And I just must put a shout out as well to our sister show, the Accounting Influencers podcast. This is the Accounting Talent podcast. And in today's changing landscape, being technically good at your job isn't enough. If you want to be a leader and influencer, both in your firm and across your industry, your community, you've got to have the right insights, the right strategies, the right personal brand. And that's what we deliver in the Accounting Influencers podcast. Each episode is put together to help you build your executive presence, your authority, your credibility, and wherever you work in. So we dive into the trends, the technologies, the strategies that are transforming accounting, whether it's ways to manage client relationships, latest on disruptive technologies, or how to position yourself as a thought leader in your industry. We've got you covered. And if you're serious about your influence, your personal brand, inside and outside the firm, tune in to the Accounting Influencers podcast on your favorite platform or on YouTube. And let's take your influence, your profile to the next level. So thanks for joining us on this episode of the Accounting Talent Podcast. I hope you're walking away with some insights, actionable ideas to who to hire and get that right to take your firm forward. And if you found value in today's episode, as always, we say join our LinkedIn community. We've got a company page called Accounting Talent. Let's keep the conversation going. Just find that on LinkedIn and join the conversation. I'm Rob Brown. We'll see you on part 3 of the Accounting Talent Podcast, where we talk about the how of hiring and getting in the talent you need to scale your firm for success. Have a great day.